Good morning.
I'll start. Good morning and welcome to the CIECA Cast. This is Fred Iantorno, Executive Director of CIECA. Today we'll have the first of an ongoing set of CIECA Casts that will provide a summary of the changes and additions to the BMS. CIECA will present a CIECA Cast after each of the twice annual releases of the BMS. Today, Dan Webster will present the 2013 R1 release. I want to thank all of you for spending the next hour with us and our presenter for sharing his insight and expertise with all of us. I will now turn this over to our presenter, Dan Webster of Mitchell International.
Good morning, all. I've worked with the CIECA Architecture Committee, of which I am co-chair, long and hard to get this release out, and now I'm ready to present it to you. It is available as a release package from CIECA, and we're going to go through everything about what that means. It's the first release of one of two scheduled for 2013. And boy, I sure wish it responded to my page down key like it did when we were practicing, Fred.
Let me see. How about that?
Okay. Here's the overview. We're going to briefly recap the business message specification from CIECA. It consists of a BMS Word document, a spreadsheet with code lists, and XML schemas that trading partners use to actually validate and maintain the XML documents that we have been exchanging for a number of years now. Then we're going to dive into the changes that were made this year and the committees that made them. And then we will talk very briefly about the things that are going on in committees at this time, which should inform the expectations for the second release of 2013 for BMS. So the BMS, which is how we refer to the business message spec Word document, is organized into sections. There's an index that can be used to find section names, and it starts with an introduction. The second section have explanations and the rules used for creating the messages, the aggregates, and the elements. If you guys are users in any form of the CIECA documents, then these terms are familiar to you, users, or if you've been on a committee trying to get some new messages through. The third section contains the common aggregates and elements, and a common aggregate is defined as one that's being used in multiple messages. Otherwise, the details of a single message are within that messages section, and that's what the sections 4 through 17 contain. And I have listed those on the next slide. We have got sections for assignments, an estimate service, disposition services, attachment services, parts and material and repair order services. And these are the ones we started with, and the attachment is actually a container to hold all the other ones. We have status in the vehicle repair status service, authorization service, a lot of work lately on the invoice, statement, and remittance service. Location service, again, is one that's generating a lot of interest these days. The survey service, valuation service for total losses, the title service, claim service we've been at for a couple of years now, and the status service. The code list is not a Word document, but a massive Excel spreadsheet. It's organized into tabs, and the first tab is indexed with hyperlinks to what we're now up to 173 individual code lists. And this is actually a lot of the work of why CIECA is here, that we can talk about the same things in the same way by use of these code lists, and as I'll talk about in a minute, putting them in an XML schema enumeration. The tabs 2 through 174 of this spreadsheet are the code lists themselves. A lot of our maintenance work goes into this with the values and descriptions. And the last 2 tabs. There's actually 3 of them. It's a template for adding new ones, which we seem to be doing a lot, a change log, and issues. The schemas then are the XML schema format of a definition of our documents that is really the technical payload of this for many of the trading partners. We've been at this since 2003, and for 10 of those years at least, we didn't include the CIECA code in our schemas, and we still maintain that version of the schema, which we call the classic code list schema. It defines the structure of the XML documents. In other words, the messages you saw in sections 4 through 17 a couple slides ago. But it's just the structure of where a CIECA code would go, under what name, in what order, and didn't actually verify that you're using only codes from those code lists. And we've recently had a codex or code extension schema, also known as Strictified, that adds strict enforcement of the enumerations from CIECA's code list. So in this version of it, you can use XML tools to look at a proposed XML document that implements one of our messages, and the XML validation process will not only make sure the format and the order of the tags is as expected, but that you've used only the codes agreed to by CIECA or extended by your own implementation. The changes that we undertook for this 2013 Release 1 of the BMS were done to implement the work of these 4 committees: Vehicle Damage and Imaging, VDI, Recycled Parts and Inventory, RP&I, Subrogation, and Salvage. The changes I'm talking about now when I say to the BMS are the structure of the messages as shown in the Word document, and the changes for VDI were to build upon the work of adding towing messages before to finally going for a towing assignment message. And in support of that, they added GPS coordinates to addresses, and once you've added it to the common address aggregate, any address in the BMS can now start using GPS coordinates. The committee also added support for emergency roadside service, and in this context it became untenable to have the claim number as a required field, as it always has been since CIECA's start in chasing around collision estimates and working with insurance companies. So now the claim number is optional in all of the aggregates in which it appears. There's support now for scheduling for towing pickup, and our first forays into internationalization with international trading partner requests to have several additional deductible fields, including having an amount and percentage of deductible present in the same estimate, and adding a minimum deductible amount as well as the maximum. There are labor skill level tiers and overlap indicator. There's other charges have units and total price in order to keep up with the way labor and parts information is stored. And there's additional refinish calculation settings stored with the profile information. The RP&I committee did most of their work on the implementation guide and business cases, but there was a change to the BMS in order to add supplier information in the return policy. For subrogation, we have added a new message for demand exchange message, and if I can find the right place in my notes, here we go. Then we got the initial messages for subrogation, augmenting them, adding new messages, and this one is sent from the demanding party to the responsible party. And the key to this addition is the ability to include an offer to settle where both parties would pay a portion of the claim or settlement amount. The Salvage team has made updates to their disposition messages to include alternate uses of the messages by creating document subtypes for their document types. This documentation enabled the use of disposition assignments to be specific for title work only assignments, tow only assignments, tow and title assignments, and standard assignments to dispose of the vehicle, normally via an auction. That summarizes the changes to the structure of messages, adding of new messages, etc. All of that encapsulated in the Word document. And a lot of the work we did for this release was also in the code list. And I neglected to mention when I talked about the third part of the three-part release package, the schemas, that the second schema, the one we're calling Strictified, is built now using macros that are embedded in the code list spreadsheet. And that macro runs and creates the actual XML definitions that are part of the schema file that has all of the codes in them. Through this process, I'm not sure we've worked it all out this year, but through the process we found things where spaces were unexpectedly found in our code, unexpected characters of many sorts that I think we get a little better every time. But the code list changes, now we're very serious about it because it's not just something you read and talk about, but if it doesn't run these macros, doesn't get in the schema, it causes real problems for our release process. We're becoming much stronger and more disciplined in this way, and I think it makes the schemas much more useful. So one of the things we did was a long time effort in conjunction with the American Recyclers Association that gave, particularly for parts, but it's the line item category code list, and what we found was the codes we had in there had problems with what we wanted to use them for. And furthermore, in a survey of our members, it was found that no implementations have actively been using them. And this is significant because we took a chance on our promise of infinite backward compatibility, and we said we're not going to support the old code, and we're going to substitute a whole new code list under this name. It's a very long code list now. It's a comprehensive as far as we understand it to be, but I think it's a very firm basis for what we're going to need going forward that's going to support data mining and various compliance and other enhanced capabilities from the BMS documents. Then we'll go into the particular committees and the particular requests of these committees, but what we found as a trend this year was that a number of committees needed work on document types and document subtypes. And I'm trying to think, we had requests from salvage, disposition and billing, subrogation, scheduling, and towing that needed new document types, and it's very useful because in the absence of increasing these code lists and having different document types, members have been resorting to name value pairs in other events or other admin info, etc. And this is a big part of our standardization efforts to move those into major code lists shared by all the committees. Another one was total types and total subtypes. Big parts of this were for VDI, for emergency road service, new total types such as tire change or jump start, and the international needs for different adjustment types, etc. I think we'll have more details on that as we go forward. The VDI committee, as I just explained, is introducing emergency road service as one of the things, and their work this last half a year has been in the area of the towing services and internationalization, and that was for introducing a tow requester, changes for emergency road service, and then for international trading partners, support for the kind of totals and subtotals that appear in reports for the European market currently. For salvage, there are new codes for handling instructions, new codes for salver status updates, and the salvage provider change code table to increase the types of messages that can be exchanged between the salvage provider, normally the insurance company, and the salver. RP&I and Subrogation, their changes could be summarized as for RP&I payment types, a credit memo as a valid payment type, and a new procurement type message for a refund. And Subrogation had significant changes to the BMS, but only one code table change. And that was expanding the identification of parties involved in the subrogation settlement process, identifying the demanding party and responsible party. Of course, the changes you're going to see in 2013 Release 2 are currently in process. The committee work that we've been doing in the first part of this year leads us to expect some changes we can hint about now. There's going to be the addition of a new BMS schedule section for appointment-related activities. The process will focus on a synchronous message exchange between the parties, and the new messages themselves will be presented in the 2013 R2 webinar. So work on scheduling has been a whole new committee that's been around for approximately 6 months, and it's one of the most active things that's happening in CIECA now. Subrogation will continue with its message development and will present changes to the existing subrogation demand exchange message. VDI, as I mentioned before, will continue its work with towing-related activities and will be making changes to enable a towing assignment cancellation and synchronous response, and a synchronous assignment response message. RPI will be expanding the messages that can be exchanged in their procurement process, one being to inquire on the status of a return, whether authorized or not authorized.
Okay, thank you, Dan, and thank you, the audience, for participating. I'd like to summarize the educational offerings for the rest of the year. The next CIECA Cast will be August 13th with a presentation from the new scheduling committee that Dan had talked about. Also, that will be followed. The 5th annual implementation conference will be held in September, on September 9th through the 11th in San Diego. I encourage everyone to register as soon as possible. Then on October 8th, the CIECA Cast will discuss the work of the Parts and Procurement Committee. And on November 12th, we will be concluding the 2013 events, educational events with the CIECA cast summarizing the changes in addition to the 2013 R2 BMS release. I want to thank you all for attending today. Have a great day.